This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's easy to say that the Browns quarterback room is bad. Okay, that's not a difficult thing to say, but what I think is more informative is talking about the Browns quarterback room, not just as a matter of fact, right? We all know that it's not the best situation a team can be in, but from a more constructive standpoint. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to go through all three of the quarterbacks currently in the Browns quarterback room, talk about what flaws have they showcased so far in their game and what they could demonstrate during the offseason in training camp and OTAs that could potentially make me feel much better about this room come September. So let's jump into that, right? The first guy I think people want to talk about is Shedeur Sanders. So one of the things I noticed when I watched Shedeur again to make this video and how he plays, and I want to emphasize that I don't really mean this as an insult. I don't think this is a inherently negative thing. But when I watch Shedeur play, it kind of reminds me more of watching somebody play Madden than like watching what you would expect a quarterback of his college experience to play the game like. And what I mean by like he plays it like Madden is like, think about what you're doing when you're playing Madden. You're not trying to have a 10-play, 8-minute drive when you play Madden because the games aren't going to be 4 hours long. It'd take you forever to get through a season if you played Madden like that. I'm sure there's some people who do, but most people don't. Most people, when they play Madden, they're big play hunting, right? They drop back there. They're not trying to get on their back foot and release this ball when it's supposed to be released against a certain coverage. What they're trying to do is big play hunt. And with Shedeur, that's kind of what he wants to do is big play hunt. And there are times where the defense in pre-snap will give him an obvious answer that makes sense for the situation. One example I can think of off the top of my head is he got a quarters look on 3rd and 3, and he had an out that was going to be open from the pre-snap indicators, and instead he decided to throw a deep ball to like Isaiah Bond that was contested and did not end up being completed. There's a lot of that on Shedeur's tape, and when you watch that and you only see the lowlights, you can sound like Jason Lloyd, right? And if you hear Jason Lloyd talk about him, it's real absolute about Shedeur's ability to process. He thinks Shedeur can't process anything, right? I don't think that's true. I don't think that's what's going on with Shedeur. I don't think Shedeur can't process as much as Shedeur isn't disciplined. That's the big thing there that I think Shedeur could stand to improve. I've talked about his like awareness during games. Like in some aspects, it kind of feels like he's got ADHD. Like he just like forgets that he's in a tight situation at quarterback. He can't afford to just kind of YOLO the ball downfield to try to make something happen. And there are times where you could just feel him getting bored, having to kind of manufacture a long drive, and then he tries to like force something deep. He's not real disciplined. That's the big issue with him. That's where his worst turnovers have been created. And that's the thing, if he can conquer, will allow him to be a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL, right? He needs to conquer that. Because part of playing quarterback in the NFL is being a little boring. Part of that is being a high level of discipline with the football, right? He's not disciplined when he's back there. Like sometimes he wants to go with the plan early on, and you'll see that, and you'll see him go with the plan, and you're encouraged, and you're like, yeah, this is what I want. And then you can feel him get bored during the game, and then or feel him get in a situation where he feels like he has to big play hunt, and all that discipline erodes, and then it's back to Madden, right, with Shedeur. That's what he needs to conquer, right? Now, to Shedeur's credit, what he needs to conquer to become a starting quarterback, in my opinion, is not as drastic as the other two guys in this quarterback room. Like, what Shedeur needs to fix is fixable. Discipline. A lot of young quarterbacks need to be a lot more disciplined. I think Shedeur needs to be significantly more disciplined than what most young quarterbacks coming into the league have to learn. So, like, I don't want to say it's like, oh, it's just a normal young quarterback. Like, he's significantly less disciplined than quarterback prospects of his playing experience in college. And I said the same thing with Cam Ward, but Cam Ward has like better physical tools to make up for the fact that he's not very disciplined. Like, he could just zip balls into windows that Shedeur can't. So with Shedeur, what his play strength is, what his arm talent is, he's going to have to be a lot more disciplined than he is right now. If he can fix that, if he focuses on that the next couple of off seasons, I think you can get to the point to where he could be a acceptable starting quarterback in the NFL. But that's the big thing. Discipline. He needs to become a more disciplined quarterback. I need to see him be okay with doing the boring stuff, right? I think a way you can identify this in OTAs and in mini camps is, ironically enough, the less you hear about like, oh, Shedeur had this highlight in OTAs or mini camp, right? And I don't mean like he can't make nice throws. I think he can, but just I don't want to see these highlights from OTAs where he's scrambling around back there or he's holding the ball for 5-7 seconds. I need to see him quick release, get the ball out, be okay with the boring stuff, be disciplined with it. Because we know he can play make. We know he can make some nice throws when he's able to scramble outside. He doesn't need to practice that stuff, right? What he does need to practice is the discipline. He needs to be okay with the game being a little bit boring sometimes, with not having those exciting throws always available to him. He needs to anchor down on that. And the more I see that kind of stuff from Shedeur, the more excited I will be about Shedeur the closer we get into the season. Let's shift gears and talk about Dillon Gabriel. But before I talk about Dillon Gabriel, got to talk about PrizePicks. Hey, let me talk to you about my sponsor for this year, PrizePicks. It's a fun way to win cash while you're watching your favorite teams. Forget complex betting rules. Their app is designed to be incredibly easy to use. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Speaking of, here are my picks for this upcoming NFL season. They have Myles Garrett at 14 sacks here. I think he will get more than 14 sacks. Joe Burrow at 3,875 passing yards. I think he'll be a 4,000-yard passer. I'm going to go with more. They have Derrick Henry at 1,224 yards. I'm going to go less than that. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You can follow me on the app at KWEN_C to see all of my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineups when you download the app using the link in the description. All right, so when I rewatched Dillon Gabriel's stuff to make this video, there were a couple of things that popped out to me. Obviously, the first thing is he really can't push the ball downfield, which I don't know if that's fixable for him in the NFL. Like, there's just so many balls he threw that died on him, especially when he tried to air it out, go downfield. That is such a big problem. I don't know if it's overcomable for Dillon Gabriel. And let me be clear here. It's not just, oh, he has a little bit of a weak arm. It's like, no, he has one of the weakest arms in the NFL when it comes to being able to drive the ball downfield. He could throw the ball very fast in short distances, but when he has to throw the ball downfield, it looks like an infield pop-up, right? Like, you ever play baseball, somebody pop that ball up infield, and it takes like 10 minutes to fall into your goal. That's sometimes what it's like watching Dillon Gabriel throw the ball downfield. So that problem, I don't know if it's able to be overcome. To Dillon's credit, right? Because I will say some nice stuff about every quarterback here. Dillon, he does not really suffer as much from his height as you would think at the quarterback position. Like a lot of people shit on him because of his height. I don't think his height is why he's not a viable option at quarterback. He actually does do a good job of maneuvering passing lanes, occasionally stepping up in the pocket. I don't think he had a ton of batted balls this year. Dylan's issue isn't that he's short. I mean, it certainly doesn't help him, but I don't think his biggest issue is that he's short. Which would surprise you. I think his biggest issue is that he can't throw that ball that far, which might have to do with him not being that big. But there are plenty of big quarterbacks who can't throw, and quarterbacks who aren't that big who can throw, right? Like arm strength is typically about your ability to create just explosion out of your arm and your legs. So that's the height thing is not Dylan's biggest issue. It's the arm ability. He just doesn't have it. He's a fine mental processor. He's not smart enough to get away with his physical flaws, which is another problem, right? Like if he had great tools, would be pretty fine at quarterback, but because he does not have great tools, his brain is not enough to drag him out of it. Like he's not. I know Mary Kay used the term supercomputer about him, which was a huge mistake from her, in my opinion. But he's not going to be able to process information so quickly that he makes his lack of arm talent not a problem. He's not that smart. Another thing that I think was an issue with Dillon Gabriel was his lack of confidence. He really just like his confidence waned, and he really fell into a pattern of being so lacking in confidence that he just threw checkdowns by default, right? And we're going to talk about Deshaun. I think that happened with Deshaun too, and it might be a Kevin Stefanski thing. But it seems like this is pretty par of the course with Dillon Gabriel. Whenever he gets into a challenge, even in college, where he does not have the physical tools to be able to provide a sufficient answer, he just shuts down and starts checking the ball down. So for Dillon to have a shot to be a quality quarterback for this team, I don't know what he can do about his physical tools, right? I don't know if he can get himself to throw a better ball downfield, but what he can improve is his confidence, right? He needs to maintain the same confidence he had in the preseason, in the regular season. If he can do that, he has a chance of at least being useful to the Cleveland Browns. If he doesn't have confidence, he's going to be pretty useless to this team. Let's talk about Deshaun Watson. So Deshaun, I've talked about it before, a lot of issues, right? If we're starting with physical issues, biggest problem for him is post Achilles injury especially, but really since his shoulder surgery, he has not been able to drive the football. He's still capable of throwing the football a great amount of distance, but he can't really drive the ball. And what I mean by that is like, I think we tend to think of a quarterback and their ability to throw the ball as singular or binary, whether they can like throw a fastball or put touch on the football. But I really do think we should think of it more like how we think of a pitcher, where pitchers are expected to have up to 4 different go-to pitches that they can go to, right? There is a curve, a slider, there's a changeup, right? And then you got your four seam, right? Your fastball that you could put probably about 96, 97 in the big leagues. If you pair that up with a nice little changeup, you got yourself a good combination. You got that with a good little breaking ball, right? You can add up. You can have a variety of pitches you could go to that make it so that you can get out of 7 innings if you're a pitcher. Well, nowadays they don't even pitch that long, but back in my day, they used to pitch 7 innings. But anyways, we don't think of quarterback like that. We only think of, can he throw the ball far and can he throw the ball and drive it? And drive has certainly been an issue with Deshaun Watson since he's joined the Cleveland Browns. The drive hasn't been the same, and it's certainly got much worse after his shoulder injury, where it looked like that drive completely fell off. So think about it like this, right? It was already starting to become a problem post his Texans career. And then he broke his shoulder. And then he tore his Achilles twice. Now, some people might ask, Quincy, why does tearing your Achilles matter when it comes to his ability to throw the ball, right? The Achilles is in the legs, throwing the football is upper body. But the thing about throwing a football or doing anything with your upper body, it's heavily reliant on your lower body, right? If you've ever learned how to box or just in general how to throw a real punch, you would know that the punch is heavy with your lower base. Like, part of what makes a punch powerful is your ability to create explosion with the lower half of your body that can transfer to your fist into somebody's jaw, right? That's the key to a good punch. You ever see somebody arm punching, right? And we talk about this all the time with like offensive linemen that they're real arms, right? Real not powerful, real arm punchy guys, that they're not doing anything like that because they're not engaging their lower half, or they're not able to create explosion. Tiger Woods, right? He had the ACL injury, a bunch of lower extremity injuries, and all of a sudden his ability to just drive a golf ball off a tee, completely different. You wouldn't think that it would be that drastic, an ACL tear for a golfer, but for some golfers it is, because it hurts their ability to create explosion in the lower half. And that explosion creates drive on the football when you throw it. And what I worry about is that Deshaun Watson's body has been damaged to a point to where he can't provide a lot of variability on his ability to throw a football, which means that he kind of doesn't have enough pitches to get going. If his fastball was already slowing down and then he destroyed his throwing shoulder and that added to the slowdown, I don't think the Achilles tear is going to be neutral on him in his ability to throw the ball. I think it's going to be negative on him to throw the ball. Now, to be fair to Deshaun Watson, I don't think physical has been his biggest problem. Now, in a different world where he's been a different quarterback and he's been more capable mentally of playing the game of football at the quarterback position, I think the physical stuff does matter quite a big deal. But the biggest issue with Deshaun so far has been up here, right? Let's talk about that. The biggest issue with Deshaun Watson, just in general, is he is indecisive as hell at the quarterback position now. Like, whatever confidence he had, whatever decisiveness he had before the 30 allegations of sexual assault and harassment, he does not have anymore, or at least has not demonstrated that he has anymore. 2024, I think, was the worst it got. And I would hope the worst it gets, because you're on top of the fact that he's indecisive, you're adding another layer of indecisiveness with him coming back from this shoulder surgery and not really trusting his throwing shoulder. So, like, he was already indecisive and had to fight through that in 2022, in 2023. And in 2024, there's just too many layers to fight through. Now, my fear with Deshaun Watson is that we're going to add that shoulder layer, we're going to add a 700-day off layer, and we're adding 2 Achilles tears to the indecisiveness potion, to the indecisiveness soup that Deshaun Watson has running through his brain right now. And it's going to lead to him being even more indecisive than he was in 2024. Hopefully that doesn't happen, because that would be painful to watch, but it's certainly a possibility. his indecisiveness, his lack of mental clarity on the football field, and just confidence on the football field, that's been the biggest issue with him. And because that's the biggest issue with him, that's why I don't care that he's lost some weight. That's why I don't care that he's gotten healthy over the year, because he had to take a year off because he tore his Achilles twice, which I don't know if that really means you're healthy. I think that means you're coming back from injury. That's why I don't really buy in to a lot of it, because the issues that Deshaun Watson had that really held him back the most weren't really physical. Now, the physical has gotten worse since, which could make the mental worse, as I just demonstrated earlier in this video. But that's the big thing, is mentally. He's a indecisive mess when he's back there at the quarterback position. And the Browns did a lot to try to make him more decisive. That's why I don't get the whole thing about people blaming Kevin for this. I don't think it's Kevin's fault. Kevin kind of went out of his way to make sure Deshaun didn't have to do that much when he came back in 2022. He really dumbed down the offense for 2023 to make it simple so he doesn't have to have a lot of choices that he's filtering in and out. In 2024, I think the reason it looked worse was simply because they brought in Ken Dorsey to kind of do what Deshaun did in Houston, and that required Deshaun to be decisive, and Deshaun could not be decisive, right? Like, I think Kevin understood that Deshaun just was not the most decisive guy at the quarterback position anymore, tried to give him just a small amount of decisions to make, and I think that worked a little bit in 2023. But then they expanded the decisions out on top of him having that busted shoulder, and he just looked lost there. He couldn't make a decision to save his life. I don't know if Todd Monken being the coordinator for this offense is the greatest fit for Deshaun Watson, considering that, like, Todd Monken requires you to make a lot of decisions at the quarterback position. Now, maybe Deshaun's had some mental clarity over the last 700 days or whatever it's going to be, and he's ready to make decisions again. Maybe he's finally at that place in his life where he's going to be more decisive, he's going to have more mental clarity, and he's going to be able to mentally be up to part of what Deshaun Watson used to be. And if that's the case, the Browns will have better quarterback play than they've had the last couple of years, and I'll be okay with it. If I am to understand Deshaun Watson to be who he has demonstrated himself to be recently, that's my biggest concern, is the indecisiveness. So if Deshaun wants to, what would make me more excited about Deshaun Watson is seeing a decisive Deshaun Watson during OTAs, mini camps, and training camp. If I see Deshaun Watson sitting back there thinking a ton, holding that ball a ton, I'm not going to be really excited about that. I don't care how good he looks in the preseason. If he doesn't look decisive, I'm worried about it, right? But if he looks more decisive, then that will get me more excited. So that's my thing I've identified with all three of the quarterbacks, that if they can improve upon during the offseason, that would make me more excited about them come the regular season. Let me know in the comment section, what are your things that you want these guys to demonstrate that they've improved to make you feel better about the quarterback position. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.